Hi, I'm Laura Goodman. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the president of PFLAG Rockland. I'm so happy to be here doing an artist interview today. I just want to talk a little bit about PFLAG Rockland and how I started to get involved with PFLAG. I have a transgender daughter who's 20 years old. And when she first started her transition about 5 years ago, I joined PFLAG just to get help, to get support. I was very scared. I didn't know what I was doing. I wanted to do it as well as I could. So I joined a support group at PFLAG, and the minute I walked in, I knew I was in the right place. Fast forward 5 years, my daughter's doing great, and I am the president, and I co-facilitate 2 support groups a month. And I get to accompany all these amazing parents on their journeys with their amazing children. And I had no idea when my daughter first came out that her transition was going to be such an incredible gift to me and to my whole family. I have met such incredible people. I meet these incredible artists. And really our whole family has become better because of my daughter's transition. So I'm grateful. Something that terrified me all those years ago, I'm so grateful for now. So with that, I would like to introduce you to our incredible Vice President, Mimi Goodman.
Hi, we always say we have the same last name. I call it the Goodman dynasty, the Goodman PFLAG dynasty, but we are not related. My pronouns are she, her, and I started in PFLAG 25 years ago. My child came out as a lesbian at that time, and fast forward, they identify as non-binary, and I think they probably felt like they were always non-binary, but I like to remind people that there was no language, and when there's no language, you don't know how to define yourself. And I think the wonderful thing is that there now is that language, because this is who they truly are, a non-binary human being. So I joined because of them. And then I have a gay son. I'm just going to add that I don't know, we wouldn't know how to have a straight child because we have 2 children and both are part of the LGBTQ plus community. My son met his partner, now his husband, 22 years ago at a Latin dance club in New York City, and they've been together ever since. So those are my 2 wonderful children, and the reason that I have been in PFLAG, not just to get support, but to give support to others, because I think that's a really important part of the entire journey. So the other thing I want to add before we continue our program is that we at PFLAG see this connection with artists as the most beautiful and natural connection that there is. And part of that is because the young people that we have come to know, they are people who push the boundaries. They help us to see the world differently in terms of gender identity and gender expression and sexual orientation. And through their dress and their hair and their music and every part of them is colorful, and again makes us see the world differently. And I think when we talk about artists do the same thing through whatever art form an artist uses. They help us to see the world differently. So we are happy and proud of this beautiful connection. But before we start, we have to thank our fabulous Lisa D'Amico, who is not only a fabulous artist, but has become a fabulous friend. And she is the one who has really helped forge this beautiful connection of us with the artist community. And we hope that it'll never end. So, and then Laura, I'm gonna.
Yeah, so I feel like I just want to add to that how it amazes me every time we do an event like this, because the artists they always come forward. There's so many of them. Every time Lisa sort of reaches out to the artists and say that PFLAG is doing something, there's always so many artists that show up for us. And it always amazes me every time. And it sort of humbles me as someone who is always worried about my child, especially in the world today. You feel very alone. And when these artists reach out and, show support for you, for your child or for the community, it helps you feel like you're not alone. So I'm so grateful. And I just want to say, I'm super excited to do this interview today because We've been doing different art shows over the last couple of years, and I've seen some stuff with Kayla, and I've loved watching Kayla speak, and I've loved watching her art. So I'm really excited that I have this opportunity to talk to Kayla Sharp, who is an incredible photographer and has a great personality, and I'm just super, super excited about this. So Kayla, we welcome you, and we're so happy that you're here. And our first question for you is, how does your identity as a member of the LGBTQ community inform your art?
You know, I thought about this question, and the honest answer is it doesn't necessarily. And I know that sounds weird. However, my being a photographer heavily influences my place in the community. I feel like it's important that if you are a transgender anything, that you make that out loud, that you live out loud, and you tell people who and what you are so that they know, and that's not an anomaly. It's a very normal process of being. It may not be a binary process of being, but very few things really are when you get down to it. There used to be, back in the day, in the 60s, 70s, and prior to that, transgender people went through the three-stage move. You would grow up in a neighborhood, and then you would move from that neighborhood to a new neighborhood, and there you would transition. And then you would move from there to another neighborhood, and you would start over your life as either a trans male or a trans female. But nobody knew. You were living in stealth. And while that solves some problems, it does not help anyone coming after you. And they don't know. And as scary as it can be sometimes to live out loud, it's important to do that so that people know, so that the people that challenge you know, and so that the people that feel exactly the way you do also know. And you can live with pride and not feel like you have to hide. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. I hid a lot. And now I live out loud, and I'm transitioning out loud in the neighborhood that I grew up in. And it's a very not what I thought I was going to do. But it's what I ended up doing. And I think it's a good thing for everyone to see. And as far as being a photographer and showing my art as a transgender person, that just further, I don't want to say the word normalizes, because there is no normal, but it makes it more common, I guess, more accepted that there are transgender people in this world, that we're not a fad. We're not chic, as people have been saying lately, which I find incredible because we've been around since the dawn of time. But, you know, that this is who we are, and this is what we are, and this is what I do. And I want it to be commonplace. Oh, she's trans? Yes, but she's a great photographer too.
Kayla, I love what you just said, because I think what you're saying is what we say all the time, which is gender identity and sexual orientation is one part of a person, not the totality of a person. It's one part. And we don't have straight people to define themselves that way. So what your answer is,
right.
You're a photographer, and you're a photographer who's living your authentic life. So your answer is the perfect and beautiful answer. And I think it's the way we want the world to be. So good.
And I just want to add something. First of all, thank you for everything you said. It was very emotional for me. As I was listening to you, I was thinking, I can't wait for my daughter to see this. I think the living out loud for the kids is so important. So thank you.
Yeah.
So we have one other question to ask you, which again, your answer is your answer, your personal way of viewing the world. Do you see art, though, as having the ability to change people's minds and hearts on such issues as an acceptance of the LGBTQ plus community? Does it have an impact? Does art have an impact on those types of issues?
I think art and literature always has an impact. Art, literature, cinema, plays, they always have an impact. It's important, again, that people see that it's not an uncommon thing, that we're so much more here than some people know us to be. It's really easy for people to often write off being trans as an anomaly and say, well, that's, God made Adam and Eve, and that's all there is to it, and there's just two sexes and so on and so forth. It's completely incorrect. And but that's their viewpoint. But if they see it, there used to be a commercial on that said a boy and his grandfather were fishing in a boat, and the kid was talking about his friend, and he said, well, my friend Adam told me this. He said, well, who's Adam? He said, well, Adam is my Jewish friend. And he said, if Adam was your friend, he'd just be your friend and not your Jewish friend. And I mean, I think that's where we need to go. Okay, I'm a transgender photographer, but I'm a photographer, and it's not something that you have to put that in front of. You know what I mean? You don't have to preface it with, this is my specific type of person in the world. This is just who I am. And I feel like every time that a new Boys Don't Cry or a new crying game or a new piece of influential art comes out, it does a little more to educate people and say, okay, it's not just this. There's so much more, and there's always so much more. And what we know, I feel like I know more about being trans than most people, but a person once said, if the human mind were simple enough to understand, we would be too simple to understand it. So there's so much that we don't know, so I'm very open to the fact that this is who I am. It doesn't fit into your box, and that's okay, But I feel like art is very important to drive those things forward. And you can tell because they're banning books in Florida. And if it weren't important for art and literature to have that effect on people, they wouldn't be.
Yeah, I think you're 1000% right. I mean, art is education, and we do know that education is power, and that's what we don't want people to be educated. So I think what you said is totally correct and really resonates also. So I just want to say we really want to thank you for coming on, for having this conversation with us. As you know already, we love the artists. Continue to make beautiful art and educate the world, and we hope to continue conversations with all of the wonderful artists that came.
We love you too, and please keep doing what you're doing. It's parental support is some of the most important support that anybody can have at this stage of their lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.